Trump's shocking act of kindness to a homeless girl will leave you speechless. On a scorching afternoon in New York City, the streets buzzed with chaos. Cars honking, people rushing, and heat shimmering off the pavement. President Trump's motorcade moved steadily through the crowd, a fortress of black vehicles symbolizing power and authority. Inside the lead Cadillac, Trump sat, focused on an intense conversation with his advisor. But suddenly, he stopped mid-sentence. His eyes narrowed as they caught an unexpected sight outside the window. Amidst the blur of movement, a frail 12-year-old girl stood still on the sidewalk, clutching a worn cardboard sign. The words, scrawled unevenly, struck like a thunderclap. "Please, help us. My family needs a miracle." Her tangled hair fell across a dirt-smudged face, her oversized hoodie swallowing her small frame. Yet it was her eyes, wide, pleading, unshakable, that seemed to freeze time itself. "Stop the car," Trump commanded, his voice calm but resolute. The motorcade jolted to a halt. Inside the vehicle, advisors and security exchanged stunned glances. "Sir, this isn't safe," one whispered urgently. But Trump didn't waver. Without hesitation, he opened the door and stepped out, leaving the crowd and his team in shock. The heavy door of the black Cadillac swung shut behind him, but President Trump barely noticed. The bustling sounds of the city, the hum of traffic, murmuring crowds, and clicking cameras seemed to melt away as he stepped forward. There she was, standing alone on the crowded sidewalk, a fragile 12-year-old girl, dwarfed by the towering buildings around her. She looked up at him, startled, clutching her cardboard sign as if it were a shield. The words, now up close, were even more haunting. "Please help us. My family needs a miracle." Her thin hands trembled slightly as she gripped the sign. Her hair, tangled and uneven, framed a face smudged with dirt, but her eyes, those wide, unwavering eyes, were clear as day. They were filled with desperation, yet burning with something else. Hope. Trump crouched slightly to meet her gaze, his towering presence softened as he spoke, his voice firm yet gentle. "What's your name, sweetheart?" The girl flinched at first, glancing nervously toward the men in dark suits standing just behind him. But when she looked back at Trump, something shifted. She seemed to see the sincerity in his eyes, the promise that, in this moment, she wasn't invisible. My name is Emily," she whispered, her voice small but steady. She gripped her sign tighter, as if afraid it would disappear. "Emily?" Trump repeated softly, his tone careful, measured. "Why are you out here all alone?" Emily hesitated. Her lips trembled, and she bit down hard, as though trying to hold back a flood of words. The crowd around them grew quieter, phones held up to capture this extraordinary moment. Finally, Emily found her voice, though it shook with every word. "My mom, she's really sick," she said, her eyes glistening. "We don't have a home anymore. My dad," she paused, swallowing hard. "My dad died in Afghanistan. He was a soldier, a hero. But when he was gone, we lost everything." Trump's face stilled. The noise of the city, the crowd, the world, it all seemed to fall silent. For a moment, he said nothing, his expression unreadable. But then, as if struck by the weight of her words, Trump took a deep breath. There was something about this girl, her quiet bravery, her resolve to stand here on a crowded street, fighting for the only family she had left, that cut straight through him. "Where's your mom now?" he asked, his voice softer now. "She's at home," Emily replied. "She's too sick to move. I didn't know what else to do." Her words hung in the air like a quiet plea, breaking through to everyone who heard them. Trump straightened slightly, turning to glance at his security team, his expression now set in stone. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty, only resolve. "Take me to her," Trump said firmly, looking back at Emily. Emily blinked, confused. You want to see my mom?" Trump nodded. "Yes, lead the way, Emily." In that moment the little girl's eyes widened, a flicker of hope lighting up her face. She nodded quickly, clutching her sign close to her chest, and as she turned to guide the president into a part of the city no one ever dared enter, the stunned crowd parted, cameras still rolling. What had begun as a simple plea for help had now become something much bigger. And though Emily could not know it yet, her quiet courage was about to change everything. The motorcade moved slowly, leaving behind the polished streets of New York City and entering a place few dared to see, Hollow Point. Inside the lead car, President Trump sat quietly, his gaze fixed outside the window as the scenery darkened. Cracked sidewalks, crumbling buildings, and narrow alleys told a story of a forgotten world. Beside him, Emily pointed ahead, her voice small but clear. "That's where we live." The motorcade stopped and Trump stepped out, ignoring protests from his security team. He followed Emily through a narrow alley, their footsteps echoing off rusted tin roofs and sagging walls. Curious faces peered from doorways, disbelief etched into their expressions. Finally, Emily stopped in front of a makeshift house, pieced together with scraps of wood and metal. She gently pushed the creaking door open. Inside, the air was heavy with silence. A frail woman lay on a thin mattress in the corner, her shallow breaths barely audible. The room was dark, lit only by sunlight filtering through holes in the roof. Trump stood still, taking it all in, the poverty, the despair, the forgotten reality of a family who had given everything for their country. "This," Trump said finally, his voice low but resolute, "is not how it should be." And in that moment, it was clear. This was no longer just about Emily and her mother. It was the start of something far bigger. The silence in the tiny room grew heavier as President Trump stood at the foot of the worn-out mattress. Anna, Emily's mother, opened her eyes slowly, her gaze weak and unfocused. Despite her fragile state, there was a quiet strength about her, the kind that comes from years of enduring more than anyone should. "Mom, it's okay," Emily whispered, kneeling beside her. Her voice wavered, but her small hand clutched her mother's tightly, as if willing her to find strength. Anna turned her head toward Trump, realization dawning on her face. You're President Trump?" she murmured, disbelief flickering in her hollow eyes. Trump nodded gently, crouching slightly to meet her at eye level. "I'm here to help," he said, his voice calm but resolute. "Emily brought me here. She told me your story." At the mention of her daughter, Anna's lips quivered, tears beginning to form. With great effort she spoke, her voice faint but filled with emotion. "My husband, David, he gave his life overseas. He died in Afghanistan serving his country. After he was gone, everything fell apart." She paused, swallowing the words that were so hard to say. "I got sick, couldn't work, couldn't keep our home." Emily looked at Trump, her eyes pleading. "She's been like this for a long time. I tried to help, but I don't know what to do anymore." The little girl's voice cracked and tears began to spill down her cheeks. "I don't want her to die." Those words hit like a thunderclap. Trump's face tightened as he glanced between the fragile woman and the daughter who had been her only strength. His expression, usually so firm and composed, softened with something deeper. Resolve, mixed with unmistakable empathy. Trump stood tall, his voice now steady and commanding as he turned to his team. "I want medical assistance here immediately. I don't care what it takes. She gets the care she needs tonight. and I want a full report on what this family has gone through." Anna's tears slipped silently down her face, but this time there was something else in her eyes. Relief. Emily clung to her mother's hand, looking up at Trump with a flicker of hope she hadn't dared feel before. As the president straightened, his gaze hardened with determination. This wasn't just about one family's pain. This was about every family like them, forgotten and left behind. President Trump stepped outside into the fading light of Hollow Point, his face set with determination. Behind him, Emily stood in the doorway, watching silently as her hope hung in the balance. "Sir, this area is unsafe," a security agent warned urgently. "We need to leave now." Trump turned, his voice calm but unshakable. "If this little girl can stand alone on a street corner begging for help, I can stand here too." The words struck like thunder, silencing every protest. Advisors and agents exchanged stunned glances, but no one dared object. Trump's next command came swift and resolute. "Get medical help here tonight. Her mother gets treatment immediately. No delays." Around him, the once wary crowd began to gather closer, curious faces peeking from doorways and windows, their skepticism replaced by cautious hope. Whispers rippled through the alley. "The president isn't leaving?" Trump glanced back at Emily, who clutched her mother's hand in the doorway. Their eyes met, and for the first time, her face reflected something new. Trust. As the golden light of the setting sun washed over the crumbling buildings, one thing was clear. This was more than a visit. Trump's unwavering resolve had lit a spark of hope in a place long forgotten. The air in Hollow Point felt heavier as President Trump walked further into the heart of the community. The streets, lined with crumbling buildings and faces etched with exhaustion, seemed to watch him in silence. Slowly, people began stepping out of their homes, their curiosity overcoming their hesitation. A middle-aged man with weary eyes and a weathered face approached, his voice calm but filled with frustration. "Mr. President, we served this country. We fought. We sacrificed. And some of us lost everything. But when our loved ones were gone, the country turned its back on us." Trump's expression tightened, his eyes holding the man's gaze. Around him, the crowd grew, listening intently. A mother whispered, "We live paycheck to paycheck, and when it's gone, so are we." Another voice added, "My son gave his life for this country, but no one sees our pain." The stories kept coming, tales of sacrifice, grief, and years of neglect. Trump's jaw clenched as he turned to address the crowd, his voice ringing out with conviction. No family who has sacrificed for this country should ever be left to suffer this way, he declared, his words cutting through the silence. Especially not the families of our fallen heroes. The crowd fell quiet for a moment, absorbing the weight of his promise. Skepticism lingered in some faces, but others began to soften, hope flickering for the first time in years. Parents clutched their children closer, whispers of belief spreading like a ripple. Emily stood at the edge of the group, her small figure a silent reminder of why they had all gathered here. Her plea, her courage, had brought the President of the United States to their forgotten streets. And now, as Trump's words echoed through Hollow Point, the residents began to believe. Change might finally come, and their voices had been heard. For a place long abandoned, it was the first sign of hope they had seen in a very long time. Emily's story spread like wildfire, capturing the hearts of millions across America. Videos of President Trump kneeling beside the young girl and walking through the forgotten streets of Hollow Point went viral overnight. The image of a frail child clutching her cardboard sign, "Please help us, my family needs a miracle," became a symbol of resilience, courage, and hope. Moved by the powerful moment, President Trump announced the launch of the Hope for Heroes initiative, a nationwide effort to support veteran families who had been left behind. This is about honoring those who gave everything for this country and ensuring their families are never forgotten, Trump declared during a televised address. The movement ignited a wave of compassion across the nation. Major corporations stepped up, donating millions of dollars. Nonprofits mobilized to provide housing, medical care, and education for struggling families. Ordinary people, teachers, veterans, students, found ways to help no matter how small. One story stood out. A retired carpenter in Ohio volunteered to repair homes for families in need. Emily's bravery reminded me what we're all capable of, he shared on a news broadcast. Communities across America rallied together, inspired not just by President Trump's actions, but by a little girl's determination to save her mother. Emily's courage became a symbol of hope, proving that even the smallest voices could spark extraordinary change. From coast to coast, a powerful message spread: no one would be left behind again. Months later, the grand halls of the White House were filled with hundreds of guests, veteran families, volunteers, and leaders who had made the Hope for Heroes initiative a success. The air buzzed with excitement and pride as President Trump stepped onto the stage, his voice steady and heartfelt. Today, we honor not only the families who have sacrificed for this nation, but also the courage that sparked this movement, he declared. A little girl reminded us all what bravery looks like. The room fell silent as Trump gestured toward the side of the stage. Emily, now healthier, stepped forward, holding her mother's hand. The crowd watched, captivated, as the once frail girl stood tall, her face glowing with confidence. Taking the microphone, her voice soft but resolute, Emily said, "I thought no one would listen to me. I was just trying to save my mom, but now I know a small act of bravery can change the world." The audience erupted in thunderous applause. People rose to their feet, tears glistening in their eyes, as they celebrated not just Emily, but the thousands of families whose lives had been transformed. Beside her, Anna smiled, a mother who once had nothing, now standing with hope for a brighter future. In that moment, it wasn't just a celebration of success, it was proof that courage, compassion, and unity could move mountains. Emily's story had become a symbol of hope for an entire nation. Under a bright, cloudless sky, thousands gathered at the National Mall for a momentous occasion. President Trump stood before a towering statue, a soldier kneeling, holding his daughter's hand, symbolizing sacrifice, love, and unbreakable bonds. As the cloth fell to reveal the memorial, a collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Inscribed at its base were the powerful words, "They gave everything. We must ensure they are never forgotten." Trump stepped forward, his voice carrying through the silence. This memorial is a promise to honor those who sacrificed everything and to ensure their families are never left behind. Courage knows no age, and hope can light even the darkest places. The crowd erupted into applause, but all eyes turned to Emily as she approached the podium. Standing tall, her voice rang out, clear and steady. "Even small voices can make big changes," she said. "Thank you for helping my mom and so many others. You've given us hope again." The audience rose to their feet, the thunderous applause echoing far beyond the mall. That day, the memorial became more than stone and bronze. It became a beacon of hope, proving that even the smallest act of bravery can transform a nation. While this story may be fictional, its message is undeniably real. Even the smallest actions can create miracles. Emily's courage to stand on a crowded street, asking for help, reminds us of the power of hope and how one small voice can ignite change. It teaches us a valuable lesson: we must never turn a blind eye to those who sacrifice everything for us. Behind every struggling family, every plea for help, is a story waiting to be heard, a story that could change lives. So ask yourself, what can you do today? Whether it's donating, volunteering, or simply sharing this story, every action, no matter how small, makes a difference. Leave a comment below and let us know how this story touched your heart. If you believe in spreading hope and kindness, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can join us in sharing more stories of compassion and humanity. Thank you for listening and for being part of this journey. Together we can light the way for those who need it most. Every share, every action is a spark of hope, and together those sparks can change the world.